The Crusades, arguably one of the most fascinating and disastrous periods in history. From the legendary figures like Richard the Lionheart and Saladin to the Siege of Jerusalem, we leave no stone unturned in showcasing the significant events that unfolded during the Crusades. We'll embark on an illuminating exploration of one of the most significant events in medieval history. Join us as we unravel the intricacies of the Crusades and unravel the layers of religious conflict that shaped the world we know today. Make sure to leave a like, turn on notifications, and subscribe for more history. The Crusades were military expeditions beginning in the late 11th century, organized by Western European Christians in response to centuries of Muslim wars of expansion. Their objectives were to check the spread of Islam, to retake control of the Holy Land in the Eastern Mediterranean, to conquer pagan areas, and to recapture former Christian territories. By the end of the 11th century, Western Europe had emerged as a significant power in its own right, though it still lagged behind other Mediterranean civilizations, such as the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic empires of the Middle East and North Africa. But in 1095, the Byzantines sent envoys to Pope Urban II, asking for troops to help confront the Seljuk threat. At the Council of Clermont in southern France, the Pope called on Western Christians to take up arms to aid the Byzantines. This marked the beginning of the Crusades. Ordinary men from lower classes were conscripted to fight in the Holy War, being told that this would bring them fortune, glory, and absolve them of all their sins that had been committed. The English, French, and the Holy Roman Empire pooled their troops together to send them all on the treacherous journey down to the Holy Land. The First Crusade was underway. 4 armies of crusaders were formed from troops of different Western European regions, led by Raymond of Saint-Gilles, Godfrey of Bouillon, Hugh of Vermandois, and Bohemond of Taranto. These groups departed for Byzantium in August 1096. Despite deteriorating relations between the Crusaders and Byzantine leaders, the combined force continued its march through Anatolia, capturing the great Syrian city of Antioch in June 1098. After various internal struggles over control of Antioch, the Crusaders began their march toward Jerusalem, then occupied by Egyptian Fatimids. Encamping before Jerusalem in June 1099, the Christians forced the besieged city's governor to surrender by mid-July. Having achieved their goal in an unexpectedly short period of time after the First Crusade, many of the Crusaders departed for home. To govern the conquered territory, those who remained established 4 large Western settlements, or Crusader states, in Jerusalem, Edessa, Antioch, and Tripoli. The Kingdom of Jerusalem most notably would be the strongest of the 4 Christian states. For a time, Jerusalem saw peace and remained in a state of tranquility for several decades. The First Crusade was an overall success for the Christian forces. However, this victory would be short-lived. The Christians would not see an easy success in what was to follow. In 1144, the Seljuk general Zangi captured Edessa, leading to the loss of the northernmost Crusader state. News of Edessa's fall stunned Europe and caused Christian authorities in the West to call for another crusade. Led by 2 great rulers, King Louis VI of France and King Conrad III of Germany, the Second Crusade began in 1147. After Louis and Conrad managed to assemble their armies at Jerusalem, they decided to attack the Syrian stronghold of Damascus with an army of some 50,000. Damascus's ruler was forced to call on Nur al-Din, Zangi's successor in Mosul, for aid. The combined Muslim forces dealt a humiliating defeat to the Crusaders, decisively ending the Second Crusade. After numerous attempts by the Crusaders of Jerusalem to capture Egypt, Nur al-Din's forces seized Cairo in 1169 and forced the Crusader army to evacuate. Upon Shirkuh's subsequent death, Sultan Saladin assumed control and began a campaign of conquests that accelerated in 1174. The Battle of Montgisard was fought between the Kingdom of Jerusalem and the Ayyubid dynasty on 25 November 1177 at Montgisard. The 16-year-old King Baldwin IV of Jerusalem, severely afflicted by leprosy, led outnumbered Christian forces against Saladin's troops in what became one of the most notable engagements of the Crusades. The Muslim army was quickly routed and pursued for 12 miles. Muslim historians considered Saladin's defeat to be so severe that it was only redeemed by his victory 10 years later at the Battle of Cresson, the Battle of Hattin, and the Siege of Jerusalem in 1187. His troops virtually destroyed the Christian army at the Battle of Hattin, taking back the important city along with a large amount of territory. Outrage over these defeats inspired the Third Crusade, led by rulers such as the aging Emperor Frederick Barbarossa, King Philip II of France, and King Richard I of England, also known as Richard the Lionheart. In September 1191, Richard's forces defeated those of Saladin in the Battle of Arsuf, which would be the only true battle of the Third Crusade. From the recaptured city of Jaffa, Richard re-established Christian control over some of the region and approached Jerusalem, though he refused to lay siege to the city. In September 1192, Richard and Saladin signed a peace treaty that re-established the Kingdom of Jerusalem, though without the city of Jerusalem, and ended the Third Crusade. Though Pope Innocent III called for a new crusade in 1198, power struggles within and between Europe and Byzantium drove the Crusaders to divert their mission in order to topple the reigning Byzantine Emperor, Alexius III, in favor of his nephew, who became Alexius IV in mid-1203. The Crusaders would depart from Venice and raid Croatian towns along the way. Once the Pope got wind of this, he excommunicated the Venetians and Crusaders. The new Byzantine emperor's attempts to submit the Byzantine Church to Rome was met with stiff resistance, and Alexius IV was strangled after a palace coup in early 1204. In response, the Crusaders declared war on Constantinople, and the Fourth Crusade ended with the devastating fall of Constantinople, marked by a bloody conquest, looting, rape, and near destruction of the magnificent Byzantine capital later that year. The Fourth Crusade was hardly a crusade at all, and tainted the noble mission that the Crusades built themselves upon prior. Throughout the remainder of the 13th century, a variety of crusades aimed not so much to topple Muslim forces in the Holy Land, but to combat any and all groups seen as enemies of the Christian faith. These crusades did not prevail in any way. In fact, it only weakened the Christian kingdoms further, and began to make many Christian countries question the authority of the Church and its role in state affairs. While the Crusades ultimately resulted in defeat for Europeans and a Muslim victory, trade and transportation improved throughout Europe as a result of the Crusades. Some historians believe it was this period that may have paved the way for the Renaissance. Among followers of Islam, however, the Crusaders were regarded as immoral, bloody, and savage. The ruthless and widespread massacre of Muslims, Jews, and other non-Christians resulted in bitter resentment that persisted for many years. In the end, the Crusades ended in failure, leaving many with nothing gained and just a mere few in power able to profit off of the hardship. Lessons can be drawn from this period with the clashing of cultures, religions, and empires on a scale not seen before in history. The Crusades in many ways has effects felt to this day.